In a previous video, I looked at all of the games Squaresoft had ultimately decided not to bring to the European markets for the PS1, and I said in that video I'd like to check out the games that they never released outside of Japan for the same system. It took me a while, but here we are. There's quite a few games in this list and I will go through all of them. Because most of the games have no English hack available, I will review most of the games in a brief manner, but a few actually do have this option, which is great to see. With that, let's get this video started. We begin with Pro Logic Mahjong Hai Shin, which was the first game to not see a release outside of Japan. This game is a simulation of the popular Chinese Asian game Mahjong, or sometimes known as Mahjong Rummy. Sadly, I do not know how to play and the lack of English does not help. I just pushed buttons and picked random pieces until something happened. I just love the digitized people though, and the reactions they provide as they win or lose money. Overall, the game gets the job done and it looks okay. If you love Mahjong, this game might be for you. As for me, I'll try something else. If these games get an English translation, I'll play it again. The next game is Power Stakes, a horse riding simulator. Unfortunately, I couldn't find a workable ISO for the game, and all I found on YouTube was this intro video for the game. The game did exist then, but perhaps nobody wanted it to be easily playable. Oh well, at least for you horse-loving people out there, this is not the end of the series. Let's take a look at Tobal 2 then. The original game was released everywhere in 1996 but sold poorly outside of Japan. This game was due for an American release in 1998 but was ultimately cancelled in wake of the first game's failure. Luckily, we now have an English translation patch to work with. Tobal 2 is a 3D fighting game that runs in the PS1's high-res mode of 480i, which looks awesome. As for the gameplay, you can walk freely around the arena, you have 3 buttons to attack with, and grabbing is quite detailed. You can grab, which can be used to push or pull your foes around, or you can punch or kick them into submission. You can throw them around too, as expected. The gameplay, soundtrack and sound effects are all solid, and although Tekken 3 is better, do not sleep on this fighting game. Did you also know the characters were designed by the guy who created the Dragon Ball franchise? There's also an RPG-like mode included, which is playable now to English speakers, but outside of trying it once, I found the mode underwhelming with poor controls and uninteresting worlds and quests. Overall, I can easily recommend Tobal 2. Great game indeed. Digital League is next, and it's another sports game that saw no release outside of Japan. It's basically a 3D baseball game with a cartoony appearance. It's meant to be endearing. If you've ever played baseball, or rounders as we call it here in England, the rules are pretty straightforward. I luckily did not need to learn Japanese for this game. Sadly, I was terrible at fielding and I never hit the ball once. Yeah, I was pretty much beaten here. It's difficult to judge distances and I don't know which button throws the ball back to someone properly. I wasn't a big fan of this game. I liked the graphics and the variety on offer, but little else. Maybe if I got a hang of the game, things might be different. Front Mission 2 is the sequel to the first game that was on the SNES. These games have been largely left in Japan. Fortunately for us, this game was English translated. Well, sort of. The script hasn't been translated unfortunately, but the menu, buttons and objectives thankfully got the treatment. Anyway, this is a turn-based RPG strategy game where you have robots and various pilots at your command. In this mission anyway, you simply have to defeat all of the other evil robots that stand in your way. This is a long game, so my short play of it here does it no justice, but I love these types of games and this one is no exception. The gameplay is easy to understand but hard to master, and there's a lot of nice detail included in the package. The slow gameplay and unstable frame rate can be troublesome, and the story text is way too long, but there could be a gripping story behind it, so take it how you will. I do recommend this game though, especially if you are a fan of the Front Mission series of games. I need to check out the SNES games next, they look good from what I've seen so far. Final Fantasy VII International is basically Final Fantasy as you know and love, with a slight twist. It's basically the North American version for the Japanese market. No differences in that regard besides the Moon language now included. Also, this version has a 4th disc which has goodies and special features on it. Yeah, not much to say about this Japanese exclusive, but I had to include it in the list. The Horse Simulator returns with Power Stakes Grade 1. I don't know if this is an upgraded version or what. Anyway, this game allows you to race different horses on different tracks, conditions and riders at your disposal. It looks as if you need to set up your own races, but with the language in Japanese, this was almost impossible. I fiddled around, but the game was defeating me. I couldn't get a race to start for a long time. I nearly gave up when I finally stumbled onto a custom race. Yeah, here we go! It's pretty unexciting to be honest. The graphics are meh, and the sounds of horses racing with a Japanese announcer didn't keep me entertained. Maybe if I knew what was truly going on, I'd have enjoyed myself some more. Anyway, moving on. Front Mission Alternative is basically a spin-off game to the main Front Mission series. Unlike the second game, Alternative is an RTS game. This one has no English translation available, so I had to fumble around. Eventually, I was able to figure it out. Basically, you have two view types, a live view, as I'll call it, and a map planning view. The map view allows you to see what points of interest are on that map and allows you to make commands, such as getting the troops to move. When you issue your orders, you can switch to live view to see the action play out in real time. As the game is completely Japanese, I had no idea what was happening or what objectives I needed to satisfy. I did pass the mission though, guess I was lucky this time. The graphics aren't too bad and the sound and music are quite nice too. Fumbling my way through the game isn't my idea of fun, mind you, and we really need an English translation patch soon. Otherwise, don't sleep on this game. There's something good to experience here. Here is the first Chocobo game, and here is the translated title for you. I'm not saying it. This game is an RPG dungeon crawler which features you playing as a Chocobo, going through different areas, exploring as you go, trying to advance the story, and leveling up, learning new moves, spells, and increasing your attack power to beat those in your way. I only played for an hour, so I can't tell you what the story is about, but I was pretty engaged. I think the charm of the game is perhaps why it's so cute and cuddly. Okay, no more sap, sorry. In all seriousness, there is a charm about this game. Playing as a glorified chicken does that, I suppose. The music is calming, nice, and adds to the upbeat atmosphere the game provides. The graphics are interesting. You get 2D character sprites with 3D backgrounds in the areas you explore. You also get 2D artwork in the world maps. In all, this is a fun and charming game that I quite liked. It's easy to get into, the simplistic gameplay doesn't make you bored, and you want to know what mischief may occur next. I definitely recommend you try this game, especially with the English translation patch. Super Life Stadium is next, and if you recall Digical League, this is the same game but with big improvements. The game looks a lot better with better 3D graphics and a new hit mechanic which lets you see where the ball is going. Same for when you're the pitcher. Fielding is much better and it's easier to catch the ball when it's in the air. Although I failed to score, my foes didn't get an easy game either, and I even caught a few out with my epic throwing and passing skills. This game is a lot more fun, and you know what? I can actually recommend this product. Of course, it is not perfect, but hey, it's a bit of fun, and to me, that is an indication of a good sports game. Check it out.
Out! Ball! Strike!
Jong returned in Shin 2. This game is more of the same. There's added flair in the graphics, there's what I guess is a world tour or tournament mode for a longer gameplay session, and new music. Certainly a lot more features are packed into the game, and I just love the new over-the-top reactions from all the digitized competitors as they win or lose money. Overall, if this appeals to you, I think you'll appreciate the changes made to make it better. But I still don't know how to play, and there's no English translation patch, so perhaps I never will learn how to play. Never say never, it might happen one day. The horse simulator is back and with a fresh coat of paint. It's Power Stakes 2. All of the points I said about Grade 1 can apply here. It's still annoying to navigate, I struggled to get a race to begin, and while I appreciate the game's attempt to dive further into the world of horse racing, it only added more misery as I just wanted to get a race started. When I did start one, the graphics do look a little better, but otherwise it's business as usual here. I can't really recommend the Power Stakes line of games unless you love these kinds of games and can read or speak Japanese. Not for me, unfortunately. Sokaigi is next, and this one is pretty interesting. It was developed by Ukes. You know, the guys who made the WWF and WWE line of games for 20 plus years. This is an action RPG game and it's not great. The cutscenes look really bad. The compression artifacts make it hard to see anything and the resolution is low. It plays in a small window. As for the game itself, I do like how you take charge in a third person view, but the controls are slow, sloppy and slightly delayed. You can attack and use spells, but I never got the hang of both. Double jumping is annoying. Again, there's a delay when using it, and when it does work, the character faces the other way, which really got on my nerves. If I want to turn around, I'll do it myself, thank you. The environment is bland and boring to look at, and nothing here made me want to keep playing. It's a shame, I quite liked the soundtrack and there's promise in its story. Overall, this left a bad first impression on me. I think the project was too ambitious for the then inexperienced developers. It would be nice to get an English patch for the game someday. Another Mind is next, and this one is very interesting. It's an FMV game where you are in control of a teenage girl who is in a hospital. Basically, you read the story, noting the interactions between the characters, and then during these sequences titled Another Mind, you can influence the story by choosing different prompts and actions for the girl to take. The style is pretty interesting and is unlike most FMV games I've played. Although the presentation is nothing to write home about, it works and is effective. Of course, being Japanese, there was no way for me to know what was going on, and I just made random choices until the next scene played out. This is one game I definitely would love to see an English translation patch for. I'd love to know what happens next and play the game right to the end. I would say try it out and experience what happens when the Japanese go all out for a game like this. Now we have IS Internal Section. This is a shoot 'em up music game which is in the vein of Tempest 2000 if you know about that game. There's a lot of weapons to pick from and a techno soundtrack which changes dynamically as the gameplay continues. Reminds me of Rez. You also have to fight a boss at the end of each stage. Figuring out which weapon works best for the given situation and dodging the enemy fire is pretty fun. Not to mention the game has a simple yet colourful and stylish look to it. The game uses the PlayStation's high-res interlaced mode for sharp-looking visuals. It's always great to see it being used. Overall, this is a pretty interesting game to play, and although not the deepest experience, there's enough here to be fun for a while. The English patch helps out too. If you like what you see, give it a shot. CyberOrg is next, and wow, this one is something. It's an action game where you have to explore each area with puzzles to solve, and apparently you can change characters, although I never got that chance. You can attack with punches and kicks, or you can use a gun-like weapon to fire from range. Melee attacks are annoying to use and miss more than they hit, and the ranged attacks run out much too quickly. The graphics aren't that great and the level design is a bit barren for my tastes. It looks a bit lifeless and lacking flair, which I was expecting on a spaceship. The music is awesome though, it rocks, and I definitely appreciated the character the soundtrack injected. Just a shame the rest of the game didn't live up to it. Oh, and the game has English voice acting, which took me by surprise. It was nice to know what was going on in the story besides these parts where the characters send you emails. Great! The game is not amazing, but I guess if you want to try it out for yourself, do it. Got nothing to lose, right? The final game exclusive to Japan from Squaresoft PS1 releases is Racing Lagoon. At the time of filming, this is also the latest game in this list to get an English patch. Thank God! This is a high-speed driving RPG experience as the game calls itself. You play a show as you experience racing on the street and trying to figure out this racing legend that took place some years prior. It's pretty clear soon you want a piece of that legend for yourself. You'll help out teammates and experience drama, which the game sometimes lets you pick out different dialogue boxes. Of course, being an RPG, you will experience random battles in the drivable overhead map, race in various locations, and if you win your races, you can acquire new parts for your car to make it better. You can also gain experience points and buy new parts and cars from the money you win. There's even places of interest and a bank to safeguard your money. You can even place bets and sponsor other cars. I'll admit the handling isn't great, but it does improve as the car gets parts as you'd expect. I had fun trying to beat my foes, even when my car wasn't up to the task. The graphics are pretty good, although the cutscenes look strange in motion and aren't the best I've ever seen. The music though, oh my word, it is utterly fantastic. From the very beginning, this jazz fusion soundtrack mixed with electronic elements is absolutely first class. I love this soundtrack and it just fits the game so very well. I can't describe how good it is, but honestly, I just loved every song that played. I could have carried on playing the game for its soundtrack alone. If you watched my series from Season 5, I used the soundtrack from this game quite a lot actually. Now you see why, it's absolutely brilliant. The composer of this game would later do Final Fantasy X2. I really enjoyed racing Lagoon. Maybe one day I'll do a proper review on it. What are you waiting for? Go and play it! There we are folks, that's all of the games Squaresoft released in Japan only for the PlayStation. I had so much fun trying out these games for the first time. Not all of them were winners as expected, and yes, some of them were hampered by a lack of English, but it was cool to see what we Westerners never got from Square, and now it makes me wonder what else Japan left for themselves. You folks tell me, what did you think of the games featured in today's video? Let me know in the comments and hopefully, I'll see you guys again soon.